To another edition of The Grid. We're here again on Thursday afternoon. I'm Mike Forman, and I'm joined as always by Ray Castillo. We have another full week of action coming up after we kicked off the season openers last week. We're into week 2 now, and you only have to wait about half an hour before we get some football here. As Victoria West has traveled down to Corpus Christi to Cal Allen's Wildcat Stadium. The Warriors will take on San Benito. They played San Benito here last year. I guess they got them to agree to a neutral site this year. Tough start for the Warriors. Calhoun in the second half just took control of that game. And it was a close game at halftime, and then boom, all of a sudden, Calhoun just pulled away. What do you think the Warriors have to do to kind of get things straightened out against San Benito tonight?
Yeah, they'll just need to be more consistent. You look at last week, they 28 points in the second quarter, and that was it.
Yeah.
But, obviously, Calhoun, had a strong second half. And you look at San Benito, another familiar opponent for West that these two teams met last year. And that was a close game. I know there's there's always, a couple players graduating, but, West has a lot of familiar faces from that game. That was a 43-41 decision last year. So West is hopefully looking to bounce back. Hardrick delivered, 166 yards. It's just, for the West, it's going to be about being consistent.
Right, and also, of course, last year, both Hardrick and quarterback Donovan Harris had big rushing games.
Mm-hmm.
The key, I guess, will be the same. Their defense has to play better.
Yes.
And part of that goes with the offense not turning over the ball.
Right.
Because obviously the offense put the defense in some very difficult situations, and Calhoun took advantage of it.
Right.
Calhoun's an excellent offense.
Yeah, they had 397 yards of total offense. So.
Yeah, so Tyler Tyree will be down there at Cal Allen Wildcat Stadium. Hopefully we'll find a place in that little bitty press box up there at Wildcat Stadium. But we're hoping that he will, and you can follow him on Twitter if you want to kind of keep up with the game at Tyler Tyree. That's Tyre. So he'll have the updates on the West game. And then meanwhile, Victoria East tomorrow night will be at Memorial Stadium for its home opener against Gregory Portland. Boy, a rough start for the Titans last week, huh?
Yeah, they had a one touchdown run by William Garley. It was off an interception. Marquise Kukanog, had an interception. It led to the Garley touchdown. But other than that, East really had no answer for Columbia. Same thing happened last year. Obviously a different team, but, Columbia defeated the Titans last year as well. And, in that game it was, for East, it was just they couldn't really find anything to get going offensively. They, Columbia had a big game. They had 400 yards of total offense, while East only had 276. So, but the changes are already underway. East is going to have Latavian Johnson, a junior quarterback, start, and move Ethan White to receiver, which is a good move, I think. Ethan has proven what he can do at the receiver position, and we'll see if the Titans can adjust to that.
So defensively, obviously, they're going to have to play better, against Gregory Portland. Gregory Portland started out with a win. They won the Battle of the Bridge against Carroll. Of course, Carroll was 0-10 last year. We don't know if Carroll is that much better or not this year. But GP's off to a good start. So, East is going to have to get its defense a little sharper against GP.
And GP played East last year as well in week 2, and Wildcats won that one 25-22.
And the thing about this game that makes it even more important is both East and West start district next week. So while most of our area teams, have 4 or 5 non-district games, some even 6, that gives you a little bit of time to get things together. East and West has got to be ready next week, because it starts to count next week. And if they want to go back to the playoffs, especially for East, because they open on the road against Corpus Christi Miller, I believe put up like 71 points last week. So I mean, East has got to be ready, and they
Yeah.
have got to show some improvement this week. Don't you feel like that?
Yeah, absolutely. They're going to definitely need to turn it around. Columbia, we mentioned before, a 4A team, didn't make the playoffs last year. Those are teams that East needs to be able to come out and beat.
Yeah, Columbia's much improved, and I know Brent Mashek does a good job down there. But really, that I'm sure the Titans were disappointed with last week and really want to improve this week. And as we talked about a little bit before, Calhoun, boy, what a great season opener for the Sandcrabs. I mean, I know they were frustrated coming in because, West had beaten them 3 straight times.
Yeah.
And obviously, the key for Calhoun is always hanging on to the football. And they did have turnovers, but they were able to do a good enough job. And when they did hang on to it, boy, they put some points up. Great night for quarterback Connor Kessler. 5 touchdowns. Could have had a 6, but was called back by penalty. Steve Johnson, their fullback, another big night. And what might get lost in all this is Jarius Stewart, their other running back. He had over 100 yards too. So you have 3 running backs back there with over 100 yards if you count the quarterback too.
Yeah.
So the Calhoun will have its home opener at Sandcrab Stadium against the Stafford Spartans. They've had pretty good success against Stafford. Year to year, you're not really sure how Stafford will be. They always seem to have some speed. So I'm sure Calhoun would love to get off to a 2-0 start here.
Yeah, it's Calhoun definitely. You look at what they've been able to do, like you said, against Stafford last year, and playing against at home. And correct me if I'm wrong, Mike. Calhoun finished undefeated at home last year, so. They're hoping to get off to a good start.
Right. They've been tough at home traditionally. That's a hard place to play over there, and the fans are great. And I would guess, although I don't know, I haven't spoken to Coach Whitaker, but the offensive line was a concern for him because they only had one guy back.
Right.
But obviously, if you produce that much offense, the offensive line was doing something. So good start for Calhoun. And speaking of starts, the St. Joseph Flyers will be in action this week. They'll be playing down at Bloomington's Bobcat Stadium against the Shiner St. Paul Cardinals. And, St. Joe obviously is a bigger school than St. Paul. But if you remember last year, St. Joseph won by 1 point over St. Paul. And believe me, St. Paul is always going to give you a competitive game. Those kids will play hard. And Coach Walksmith has done a tremendous job down there. So I kind of, you just never really know what to expect from the first game. I guess that would be the Flyers' biggest concern.
Right. And, first games, you just never know. Like you said, you look at last year in St. Paul, what did they start, Mike? 0-7 and ended up winning state championship. So you just never know. But for St. Joseph, it's a familiar group of guys coming back. They're determined to, have a better season this year. They made the playoffs last year, but they want to get off to a good start, and, it'll be a good test with Shiner St. Paul as their first opponent.
Right, and I believe Bordovsky is healthy, right?
Yes,
he's ready to go. He had some issues over the summer. He wasn't able to participate in 7-on-7. But he's ready to go, and of course they have Diari Patton back on the line. They've got a lot of returners. So, and St. Paul lost some people, but then again, they had a good start against Yorktown. They had two 100-yard rushers against Yorktown. So Cardinals are right back where they were. So we have those games and then we also have some big games around the area. So we'll start right over at Gobbler Stadium here with Cuero and Yoakum. Be the 110th meeting of those two teams. It's a great rivalry. I mean, the schools are about 14 miles apart, something like that. And boy, the kids know each other. A lot of them are related. They play together in youth football. Just really a great rivalry, and it's an interesting game this year because both teams are pretty inexperienced. I looked at it and I went over it with actually Cuero coach Travis Reeve. We sat down, we kind of talked about it. They have 5 players who were on the field starting for the state championship game that are playing this year. So that shows you. I mean, he's dealing with a new deck over there, and basically the same thing for Yoakum. They have only like 5 starters back, and that if that counts, some guys going both ways. So. Coach Bo Robinson has said that they're going to have some growing pains, but I think both of these teams by the end of the season will be good. So this will be a good test. And I don't know if you saw the article today, but the winner of this game, I mean, both teams badly want to win because it's bragging rights, but the loser of this game has actually done better in the playoffs the last 3 years than the winner. So really, it's a good game for both teams because you're playing quality competition. It's the second game of the season, but I guarantee you Gobbler Stadium will be packed, and it'll be like a playoff atmosphere. So you really get a sense, a feel of what it's going to be like in the postseason. So that'll be a really good test for both teams. Then also down the road in Goliad, we have Refugio and Goliad going at it again. Of course, I know the Bobcats haven't forgotten last year. Goliad came over to Jack Sportsman Bobcat Stadium, and they put a whipping on them. It was 35-0. The first time Refugio had been shut out since the 2001 playoffs. So that was pretty. Of course, Refugio, if you remember, was running this option offense, which it junked midway through the season and went back to the spread. Refugio ranked number 1 in the state. They started off pretty well with a 43-7 win over Tidehaven, which coming in was ranked number 10 in Class 3A Division II. The bugaboo that Coach Herring found from the opening game was they were sacked quite a few times. Quarterback Austin Ochoa was sacked, and they also committed 4 turnovers. Well, if you can commit 4 turnovers and still put up 43 points, that's pretty good. But he wants to eliminate that against Goliad. Goliad went through a lot of growing pains the other night against Columbus, a game which they were ranked number 8, and that loss knocked them out of the rankings. But I still believe by the end of the year, Goliad will be there. They have a brutal non-district schedule, and they're starting a sophomore quarterback. Their backfield, with the exception of Sean Justice, who played last year, is almost totally new. So it's a growing process for Goliad, and it's like Coach Nicholson, Bobby Nicholson said, playing people like Refugio, like Columbus last week, they'll play Rockport, Fulton, they'll play Shiner. Those kind of people, get you. You have to play fast to play with those people. So his team is getting a lesson that he hopes that by the time they reach district, it will pay off for them.
Right. And I talked to Bobby before the season, and that's exactly what he talked about, was purposely, scheduling these non-district games just to get ready for district play. And, the Tigers, a lot of new faces as well.
Right.
And they're doing what they can with what they have, and hopefully it'll, work out for them.
And another interesting game, a couple of undefeated teams, Industrial and Shiner. Shiner, of course, you saw their opening game, got off to a great start against Hallettsville and moved from number 3 to number 2 in the poll when Mason got beat. So, and Industrial's been the team that everybody kind of this year, when I went around to different schools, everybody would kind of say, watch out for Industrial, because they made the playoffs last year. Coach Jamie Dixon's first season. He installed the slot T, but this year he's expanded a little bit. So they can do some more things out of that slot T. And they played well against Mathis, and this will be a good test for both teams. Obviously, Shiner is, they're loaded with speed. And, that's going to be the key for Industrial, is whether or not they can contain that speed. But it'll be a good test for both teams. Good early season game, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. And, like you said, Mike, I got to see Shiner last week against Hallettsville, and that backfield looks like they're already in form, picking up where they left off last year. It was, Zane Rhodes, Danye Taylor, Doug, and Dalton Brooks. And then you even got Trevor Haynes
Yeah.
You know, those guys combined for over 400 yards of
Yeah.
offense. So
Yeah, and then you know you haven't even mentioned Leonard, and of
right.
course their tight end Cole Patek.
Yes, so many weapons.
They have it, and Tyler Palmer playing quarterback. So yeah, they are loaded with speed and talent on offense. And Coach Bedeker, of course, Daniel Bedeker. You know, he was the DC last year, and he took over as head coach. He's been there forever, so he knows those kids. And I didn't really expect them to skip a beat at all, and they showed that really. So another big game for them. There are quite a few games, you know, around the area that will be going on Friday. I know one kind of interests me was Fall City and Poth, because Fall City defeated Poth last year and went on to the semifinals. That's always been a big game for the Beavers. That kind of tells you about where they're at. And they start out really well last week with Brady Lissy, their quarterback. He moved over there when Keyshawn Johnson left. But quite a few good games. We'll have them all on Twitter. And one thing I wanted to point out or ask for help with is tomorrow will be our first area leaderboard. And we had pretty good response this week. But we would appreciate, coaches, if you could get your season stats to us. Just email them at either sports@vicad.com or mforman@vicad.com, so we can make sure and get your players recognized in the area leaders. And of course, please get us your scores and your stats for this week. And you can follow us on our live Twitter feed during Friday night's game. I know Tom, I'm sure, will have some videos from Easton GP. Our producer, Tom Martinez, will be out there at Memorial Stadium getting videos. So you can keep up with that. And, of course, don't forget you can read all about what happened in the grid on Sunday. And we'll look forward to be back next Thursday with another edition of the Grid.